Hello and welcome, I'm Kira Scrivener, and today I'm going to be doing the end of the year tag. I'm very excited to be doing this. This is a long staple. Ariel Bissett made it years and years ago. She now does it on her podcast each year with Raylene, and it's really fun and amazing. And it is later because this is very much a September tag, but I'm doing it in November with no regrets. And yeah, the first question is there any books that you have started and not finished this year? And I thought that it was going to be much bigger because my currently reading shelf is very large, but I went through and I DNF'd a bunch of books this year. I have a whole video with all the books I've DNF'd in 2023. And then it only leads technically to Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. And the reason I've not finished this is that I read it every night with my nephew, so it takes a very long time to go through. We started in June, but we are still making it through. So that one is going on. And then The Watsons by Jane Austen, which is purely my fault, and this is because I read all, I think I have a page left. I started it, I was vlogging it, I was having so much adventure, and then I think I had a flare of just like chronic pain, just all of those things, and I like wanted to finish it so well that I had already like read and made like meticulous notes on the first, like, it's, you know, one of her unfinished novels, so it's like 40 pages long, and I made so many notes and thoughts, and then I just never read the last half page because like I didn't want it to end and have those thoughts. So that's something I should do by the end. There was a few books that I started late last year, like Mere Christianity, which I do really hope to finish by the end of the year. I was reading pretty steadily and then fully fell off that bandwagon back in probably June-ish and have not picked up the book since. So question number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transfer you into fall? And since fall is already here and gone, pretty much, I would like to think that it is fall. It is still some leaves. It has snowed the last few days. And it's not the snow that stays, it's just the snow that tempts you and reminds you that the ache of cold is coming. So I want to talk about the books that I read this fall that kind of transferred me into fall. The first one was Dr. Thorne by Anthony Trollope. This is a very large book in his Barsetshire books, which are just so good and so wonderful, and I really fell in love with the story, and it's very fall. It is rural, it is sweeping, it is funny, and just like domestic in the best way. I really loved it. It became a 5-star. So I'm just really thankful that I read that at the beginning of September. It just felt very fall immediately. And then I want to give some shout outs to some horror books that I read in the end of October, beginning of November, around the Halloween time. And the first one was The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. I'm in love with this story. It was so wonderful. Pretty much the story is about this American family that moves into an English mansion, and it's like cheaper because, you know, there's a ghost. And then the American family like refuses to believe in this ghost or like actually be spooked, so then the ghost is having like a midlife crisis about like, I've spooked people for 400 years. Why is this American family defeating me? And it's so funny. I laughed. Like, I knew that it was going to be funny, but I also thought it might have like a little bit of spook in it. There's a short story called Afterward by Edith Wharton who has like a similar kind of angle, but it is a little bit spooky as well, but the American family refuses to believe it at first. It's very good. And then I had a delightful time of reading a bunch of Edgar Allan Poe's works, including The Fall of Usher, House of Black Cat, Mask of the Red Death, and a few others. I was reading them with my roommate as we were preparing to watch Usher House, and we watched the first 2 episodes. We are big fans of Mike Flanagan in the house, but we only watch them together because we are terrified. Actually, she watches them without me sometimes, but I am terrified of horror, so I only watch them with her. And she's not a binge watcher, so we will spread that out throughout however time. It took us 2 years to watch Bly Manor, but it was very much worth it. So yes, whenever we finish that, it will be delightful, but it was really fun to read them. And then I also read Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fou, which was interesting. It is kind of a predecessor to Dracula in the vampire thing, and I didn't love it very much. I don't know, it just didn't do much for me, and I think I like Dracula a lot, and there's a lot of comparative thing, and I know that one came first, so I'll talk about it a little bit more in a different video. But if you want spooky, sapphic vampires that is very unsettling in many ways, this might be the book for you. And then I also reread The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which was very interesting. I read it when I was about 15 and I became obsessed with it, loving to scare the children that I babysat with. Like, I didn't like scare them, but like I just like pulled my shirt over my thing and did the like headless horseman and like told the story with dramatic tale, and I told them that it was a pumpkin and all of that, but it was so fun. So I think that because I knew the story well so much, and I don't think it could ever live up to like the hype. I wasn't even sure if I had read the whole thing or just a condensed version, but I definitely read the whole thing because I remembered so much of the description. So that was an interesting thing. I don't know. I would have to like reread it again knowing that I knew the story and then think about how I feel about it now. The third question asks if there is a new release that you're still excited for, and I am super excited for Please Do Not Touch the Exhibit by Jen Campbell. She is a YouTuber and poet and writer and just has such amazing things from the excerpts that I've said. And I was so excited because my friend gave me a gift card for my birthday back in September and I pre-ordered it. I really love the way that she explores themes of disability and motherhood and infertility. I think that it will be such an interesting book and one that also touches my soul in like a really personal way. Question number 4 is, what are 3 books that you should read by the end of the year? And yes, I read a lot and I'm a huge mood reader. So what I should read and what I'm going to read is always up there. But I'm going to start with Stories from the Tenants Downstairs. This is a book that I said I was going to read by the end of the year in my mid-year tag. And I think that it might have also been on my last year tag as well. I want to read this, but sometimes I think I'm like overhyping it too much that I'm like afraid to read it. This is a constant issue in my life, but I would really want to read it. It's a short audiobook that I think I'm going to love. So I want to read that. And then I'm also a little bit intimidated by this one as well. But New Grub Street by George Gissing. This is like an 1890s satirical kind of dark book looking at the literary circles in London. Like, oh my goodness. I have wanted to read this book for years and have no access to it. And there is this library that I sometimes have access to and I sometimes don't. Like, I always have access to it. It's the Markham Library, which is a subset of Toronto. But because it is like a lending library and not one that I have ready access to, I'm only allowed to see the holes if they are not taken out by anyone else. So currently, this one popped up and I was like, oh my goodness. I can see it, I can take it out. It's been happening with a few Trollope books lately too, and it makes me so happy. So I currently have it out from loan. It is 23 hours on audiobooks, and I've just read many big books. So I don't know if I want to jump into it, but the thing is, if I don't read it in the next like 15 days and then it expires and I never see it again, it will be a sad world. So I really should do that. Similarly, I have Can You Forgive Her by Anthony Trollope. I have got lucky with the fact that I renewed this from the same library and no one has taken it, which makes me so happy. This is the first book in the Palliser novels, which follows the chronicles of the Barset Chronicles. It is about Parliament and about the different characters and dynamics between a couple that have like an arranged kind of marriage with no love. And I am so excited for it. I think I'm gonna love it, and I've just been building up to the big bookness of it. Question number 5 is there a book that you think might surprise you and still become one of your favorites of the year? I'm gonna say one of, because I don't know, my favorite book of the year is so nebulous because I read in so many different genres. I find it very hard to like have a distinct book. It's so hard to sometimes quantify that. Like the 2 books that I think that are competing for my first top book of the year is so many. There's probably 3. The Swimmers by Julia Succo, which is just breathtaking and like modern, and the way that it plays with themes and characters is so wonderful. Wandering Souls, which is also I guess playing a little bit with the different stories. It's the saga throughout a woman's life who flees Vietnam as a child during the Civil War and loses her family, and then her growing up, and then her daughter looking back, and it's like playing with all these kinds of fiction, and it's so beautiful and wonderful. And then I have Gentlemen's Prefer Blonde, which is just like so funny and wonderful, 1925 like satirical classic, and I could definitely put some Trollope up there as well. And it's like, how do I compare these novels? They're not really equivalent. I just have a hard time picking my favorite of the years anyways. I think that's why I'm so bad at doing those lists at the end of the year. But then the book that I just read the most recently was Harbor Me by Jacqueline Woodson, one of my favorite authors, just fantastic. And this is an incredible middle grade book that I just read and like I am in love with. Like in another world where I'm just like doing based on like impact and stuff like that, that's also at the top of the list. So it's like so hard to like rate these against each other. So like, who knows? I think that Please Do Not Touch This Exhibit is definitely going to be like up there near the top, but I've also read a lot of books, so it's hard to tell. And who does I know? Anyways, but all of that prelude aside, I think I'm a fan by Sheena Patel. If it is the kind of book that I love, will be this. Like it could be a book that I just really have a lot of distaste for. It really depends on like the level and the ways in which it does this, but this is about a woman who is obsessed with a man who has another lover, and then she's also another level. Like I think that he has a wife and then he's cheating on her, and then he's also cheating on another woman. And I believe that there's also a level of the fact that the unnamed narrator is a woman of color, and she's looking at a woman who has a lot of the ideas of like white privilege and blondness and things like that. So it's all of these different understandings and critiques, and I feel like I could really love it. I feel like some people compare it to No One Is Talking About This, a book that I hate, so maybe I'll hate it. I don't know. But I feel like it could be a favorite. On the other hand, a book that I have been not reading for a really, really long time that could be a favorite is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. The first two books in the series, Scythe and The Thunderhead, are two of my favorite books of all time. I really, really, really love them. And this book is a book that I read the first 90 pages. I think it has like 800 pages or something like that back before the pandemic. And then I got into a huge reading slump and did not finish this book. And it was not because it was bad. It was just because of like life. So yeah, I really want to read this book because it could definitely be a favorite of my year. And then the last question is, have you started thinking or planning your 2024 goals yet? Yes, I have. I, back a month ago, was like, I have resisted long enough. It is time for 2024. And like, I don't know, I am such a mood person. Like, choosing for a year is so hard. But what I have been doing is checklists, and then I've been considering if I want to readjust those checklists because I've not been reading as many books. I read a ton of books. Well, I read like 9 books in the last like day or so, but a lot of those have been short stories. Like I read 2 short George MacDonald books. I read like Carmilla, which is like 100 pages. I read, these books that have not been significantly long, and that has given me so much joy. But I've also been reading classic books a lot, and I was like, should I just like fall to the wind and stop trying to read like contemporary books? I don't know, but then like I'm like, should I just read fantasy because that makes me happy? I am just always going to be a very myriad person who struggles with limiting the things that I like. But I do think that I really want to focus a little bit on Canadian fiction more. So currently my thing has a book by a Canadian author, a 19th century book, a 20th century book, and I want to make a list of classics that I probably won't read, but I'm getting a little bit better at conquering my big books and my fear, which has been good. I'm hoping that's going to continue on. I'm hoping my spark for reading is going to continue. Maybe I'll actually be able to read something that came out in the last 100 years. And I'll love it. Yeah, let me know how fall is going for you, how the end of the year is going. If you're in the southern hemisphere, how spring's going. Is it springing for you? That would be wonderful. And I will see you next time.